right, we going?
Yeah.
All right, okay.
So we are talking about tonight our first responders experience. It's been 3 years, as most of you know, since Lilly passed away, and with this month's service project with thanking your first responders, we thought, wow, what a awesome opportunity. And then Josh ran a race last weekend in Casper, Wyoming. And so that made it just perfect because we needed to go to Wheatland, Wyoming, which is about an hour away from Wheatland or Casper. So we bought a bunch of goodies and had some baskets and had the kids write thank you letters and anything that they wanted to write to the nurses and people that helped them. So Friday we headed out and we had called the hospital and asked them if they could find any nurses or doctors that were on that night of the accident. So they were able to locate through the records and stuff one nurse. All the other nurses had moved on and done different, they're on to hospice or just different places. And so we were able to meet with one nurse named Anne, and it was an awesome experience. And I just told her from a mother's point of view, or just from my mother heart, for her to be there and to make my kids' experience so wonderful was just, my gratitude was so great. When the accident happened, we'll kind of just go into that. I was driving, it was, mid-morning, and it was not a divided highway or anything, but we were driving. Josh was already home from our vacation that we'd just taken in Florida, and I was pretty tired, and Isabel was in the front seat, and minutes before the crash happened, she decided to hop in the middle seat to watch a movie with the boys. And that was a wonderful blessing because that part of the car was smashed down pretty hard. But anyways, I woke up suddenly from hitting a post and overcorrected, and we rolled the car. And there was a man who I remember when I came to, I got knocked out and then came to, and he just asked if I was okay because he was going to go help Lilly. I was able to get out of the car on my own, but then when I went to stand up, I blacked out. I didn't pass out, but everything went black, so I laid down and was able, I think I was in and out, but and then many people helped that day. And there was another guy his name is Troy, who came. He was the second person who came on the scene and helped with many things. And I just remember them telling me that 3 of my kids were going to be going on the ambulance to Wheatland, Wyoming, and that myself, Talmadge, and Lilly were going to be life flighted. And at first that just brought so much just worry and sadness, because I was like, I need to be there for them. I don't want us to be separated like that. What's that? How many hours is that separation? Like Wheatland to Scottsbluff?
Well, that's not too far, but the timeline.
Yeah.
The accident happened at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you didn't see Izzy till 2 in the morning.
Yeah. So that just made me worry so much. But again, throughout this whole thing, I kept, things would cause such an alarm in me, but then this peaceful feeling would just wash over me. And that's one of the moments that this peaceful feeling just washed over me. And I just remember I could hear Lilly, and her breathing wasn't very good. And I could only see her from the chest down, and I knew something was very, very wrong. And I had remembered seeing Talmadge, and he had been praying. So I didn't think anything was majorly wrong with him, but I was laying on my side. I couldn't get up. Like my right collarbone was broken. I knew something was broken because it was all heavy. And so then I'll go back to, we'll just kind of, meeting Anne. She just told us that there was this other nurse named, and he was in nursing school, and he was the one that just made it so fun for the kids. He had Donovan, yes. And the kids, you know what, like when they told me about their experience, they never said that they were scared. They never said that it was it of course was traumatic, but these people, these nurses, and made it so that it was a memory of fun memories. He had in his car a whole bunch of iPad and a phone and a laptop, and he was able to give each one of my kids one of those, and they could watch whatever show that they wanted. They could play a game with. My kids said he was the best nurse ever. He let us play this fun motorcycle game, and so that brought so much peace and comfort to me. And Anne did remember my children, and she was able to tell me more details of what happened that day. Do you want to add anything?
Well, I just think we didn't get to meet the ambulance response.
Oh, yeah.
The ambulance drivers, but they played hot potato with the kids. Like they were just angels for us while we weren't able to be with our kids. Mm-hmm. They took very good care of our kids and made it fun for them and took their minds off of what they had just experienced.
Yeah, it was a positive experience in the sense that they were very well distracted with things. And there was also a bishop from that town that came with his wife and brought snacks and blankets, and we were able to meet with them.
So Matt and oh boy, I'm embarrassed. Matt and Valerie Stafford, yeah.
So we were able to, they had us over for lunch when we went out there and visited, and they were able to just tell us more. Like she said, yeah, I watched Studio C with your daughter, and Isabel had never told me that, and so that was just really, really neat. And they were just like grandparents, like family that had come, even though we'd never met them. They were like family then that night, and when they brought us into their home when we went back into visit, it was like family. We talked for hours, and they fed us lunch and
played pool downstairs. Got to see Matt's guns and his radio broadcasting equipment. It was just
and so neat to meet them and to thank them. We did give them a basket also, and just wrote heartfelt notes, and it was just cute to see what the kids remembered. And they the basic feeling from the notes that my kids wrote: thanks for making it fun, or thanks for feeding us yummy food. Like that's what Nelson, he was 3 when it happened, so it was just so comforting and so healing. And you think you think that you're mostly healed, or I don't know if you ever do fully heal, but to hear their stories and to hear how their lives were touched because of their act of kindness and their act of service was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And then we'll kind of skip to my side of the accident. So I was life flighted. I remember bits and pieces. And I remember just being in the hospital bed and being in and out of it. But I remember a man came in, and he just came and gave me a blessing. And did you arrange that?
Yes. Okay,
that's what I thought. And I just remember, I don't remember much because I was pretty out of it. I was in rough shape. And I do remember him saying that I would have a full recovery, and that I really clung to those words because it was rough. I'd broken my collarbone, my shoulder, and my toe, which weren't so terrible. My injuries could have been a lot worse. So just so grateful for that. And do you want to go on?
Well, John Blumstead was who it was.
Yeah.
He came and gave you and Talmadge a blessing.
Okay.
In the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, as a father, I have the privilege to be able to give blessings to my wife and children in times of need for healing or for comfort. And I wasn't able to be there physically, and so John stepped in that role for me and was able to offer that ordinance and blessing for Stacy and Talmadge, and that was just a huge weight off of my shoulder, knowing that somebody could be there and that they could have that blessing pronounced upon their heads.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And then we were able to meet in Wheatland the next day on Saturday, Troy, and he was the second on the scene, and he was just coming. So and I didn't know really much about him. He was just one that had reached out to Josh and called him and kind of told him what was going on the crash site. And so Josh had his number, right?
Yeah, so you gave Troy my number the day of the accident, sometime before you got on the helicopter. And so Troy reached out to me because I had received 2 calls from the Highway Patrol, but they were very ambiguous. They didn't know where the kids were going, and they didn't really have good information on where Stacy, Talmadge, and Lilly were going. They kind of, for whatever reason, not blaming them, it's just that the dispatch lady didn't have that information on hand. So Troy called, and he just said, as father to father kind of a deal, you need to know, and he gave me a breakdown of how each of my family members were doing, and I had a chance to ask him a little bit, and he said that Isabella, and Nelson, and Benson were totally fine. He, from what he could see, there was nothing wrong, and that they would be just fine. And he told me that they were all going on the same ambulance to Wheatland, Wyoming. And then he told me that Stacy, Talmadge, and Lilly were all being life-flighted, and gave me a little bit of a reporter assessment on their situation, and he wasn't sure, as he's not a medical professional or anything. He just wasn't sure, and just told me kind of a brief status that he felt like my wife would be okay, and that Talmadge looked pretty busted up, and that Lilly was not doing well at all, and that she was not good. And I so much appreciated in that moment him making himself vulnerable to just call as a father to a father and let me know that information. And Troy also was the one that he was going to come to the funeral. He called and reached out and asked if he could come to the funeral, and I said, of course you can. He ended up, for reasons of his own, not deciding to come.
It was too hard, I think.
Yeah. But he and I have kept touch just very mildly on Facebook, and he also went and set up a wreath for Lilly at the crash site for the last 3 years. We've enjoyed the wreath that Troy set up, and that was just so thoughtful and so touching, and just it's been amazing. And in some ways I'm embarrassed that we've taken 3 years to reach out to these individuals, but last Wednesday the 26th, when I just made a little post, Troy reached out and said how much that this event has shaped and changed his life for the good. And I remember him saying, I apologize, I hate to even say this, and I don't even want to say this, but that day changed my life for good. I know that I wish that it would have had a better outcome for Lilly, but the things that he has felt and seen and witnessed since then has made his life good. And so I felt impressed to call him and ask if we could meet with him. I told him we were going to be down there, and he was more than happy to do that. And so we got together with him Saturday night, and we just met at a park, and it was very wonderful. And we got to chat and get to know Troy and a little bit more about him, and he shared a number of things. He shared
a lot of things that I didn't know. Like, I thought I was when I got out of the car, I was like, hey,
I thought you could get out of the car on your own.
Well, and I thought I was with it the whole time. He's like, you were kind of in and out of it.
And he helped you out of the car.
So, and which I didn't know. I said, so I got out of the car by myself, and he's like, no, I actually helped you because your hair was all tangled and caught somewhere like between the roof
and the ceiling and the headrest was pinched your head.
So he said he helped me get my hair out. And then I was so thirsty because I was in shock. I was like, I need water, and it was really, really hot. It was in August. And so and I didn't know this, so these are all details that I didn't know. So he said, and it was so cool that he was able to like paint a picture for me, because I was never upright looking and seeing the whole accident. I was laying on my side with one black eye that was swollen shut, and so I really only had like a view, like a ground view of things. And so it was neat, because our kids have told us here and there, bits here and there. But it was neat to for him to fill in the blanks, I guess, or just give us details that we didn't know. So he's like, yeah, I went to my car and got a water bottle out of my lunchbox. So that was
on the way to work.
Yeah, he was on his way to work. So that was awesome. And then I said, yeah, and it was so awesome that you guys held up a blanket because it was so hot. It helped with the shade. And he's like, that wasn't really totally for shade. He said, they actually had to cut your clothes off, so we wanted to give you some privacy because the highway was higher than the ditch, and people were kind of slowing down and looking on, and so I was like, well, thank you for that, giving me some privacy.
Didn't want to cause any other accidents with Stacy laying without any clothes. I know that there would have been a lot of people distracted by that.
So that was really, really cool. And then he just told us about how there was 2 people that went to different places. It was kind of out in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming with no reception, so they had to go to someone's house. They had to go to a house or something and get a hold of the ambulance and the emergency crew.
One of the things I thought was cool is one of the families that showed up on the scene, they had just been to the grocery store or something like that, and he doesn't remember exactly, but he said they had like food and fresh things to give to the children. He had remembered that possibly that there was actually some popsicles or something. The kids said that they didn't remember that. But anyways, it was neat that there were people that just showed up that in some ways were uniquely prepared to provide some aid and food. One of the gentlemen that we didn't get to meet up with last weekend that did come to the hospital the day or next day or 2 days later was a gentleman that was assigned to the Hartville Fire Department as a chaplain or as a priest, and he and his wife came to the hospital and shared some wonderful information with us and told us a little bit about the experience that he was there and able to pray with Lilly and pray with many of our children. And
I do remember him, and I remember him praying with me, and he said, "I'm going to go pray with your daughter now, so just don't worry." So he did. All of them, they knew how bad Lilly was, but they tried to distract me and tried to comfort me. So that was so appreciative of them to do that.
So I'm going to go back to Troy for just a second. So one of the things that Troy shared with us was that some part of that experience was traumatic. Well, probably a lot, but there was one specific part that was traumatic for him. And I had received some information from one of the people that was medical people that were involved with the accident, and then I was able to convey to him just the essence that the nature of Lily's injury were that the likelihood of her surviving, regardless of what anybody would have or could have done, are virtually zero because of the injury that occurred, and that I was told that she did not suffer. The likelihood of her suffering anything or knowing or being aware of anything was practically zero because of the trauma that she received. And that always kind of made me as a father not being able to be there a little more palatable, but that I didn't realize that was something that Troy had been suffering and dealing with, and so sharing that with him this last weekend, he felt a lot better. And then I shared with him also an experience that Talmadge shared with us, that day at the crash site, Talmadge reported that he remembers that he saw like light, Lilly, in like this form of light leaving her body and rising up out of that and kind of being present. and sharing that with him, I know meant a lot to him. And so part of our visit down there was we were going there to say thank you, but like all types of service, both sides end up being blessed. And we were told and you could see it in their faces, and many of them expressed it, that they were so grateful to see us like together, and that our family was healthy, and they could,
we're doing okay, we're doing well.
And little Grace, like she was absolutely
gift.
a blessing, and many people loved seeing Grace there.
And they did mention that, as you know, first responders and things like that, a lot of times with major accidents or even anything, they don't get to know what has happened or what has become of these people. And so when it does happen, that they get to meet them and are thanked, it means the world to them. It means so much. And so going to, like, when I was in the hospital, there was another gentleman the next day that came and gave me a blessing. And so we went to Scottsbluff after we went to Wheatland, and we wanted to thank, you know, the doctors and the nurses. And it just happened to be that we went to church and we had missed it because it was a different time. But the man who came and gave me a blessing that night was there.
He's from Cheyenne.
He's from, well, I'm talking about the bishop.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So he was there, and Josh had asked, is there any healthcare professionals that work at the hospital? Just to some lady, Sister Painter. And they were like, yeah. And so he came out and we were able to talk to him, and I was able to thank him. And that meant a lot to me. And then the Sister Painter, she happened to be an OBGYN. And Josh had a list of doctors that had given us care, and she said, I know all of them. And I didn't know what I was talking to other people, but she came up and she said, here's this doctor's number. He said it's okay for you to call him. And I said, wow, like it wasn't a mistake that we're here today. When we were here, that's a miracle to me. And so I was able to call him, and then right as we were leaving the parking lot, a man came out, and he just looked familiar, and I was like, that's him. That's the man that came and gave me a blessing the next day. And we were able to talk with him probably for almost an hour, and it was just, you could see that he was touched that we were doing well, because he knew how bad it was. And so just to meet these angels, these heroes that helped us so much, was an amazing experience, and it's a weekend that I will never forget. And their service will always have a place in my heart. And so Monday, I left a message with the doctor, Jimenez. He's the one that did surgery on Lilly. And he called, and I was able to talk to him. And I knew that he cared very deeply. And he did say that he remembered, and he said to me that they fight really hard, especially for children. Of course, everyone, but and that it really hits him as a doctor when they don't make it, because he has 4 children, and he knows. Well, he hasn't lost, but he can only imagine how hard it can be. And he did say that he said a prayer over Lily after she passed away. And that was amazing. And then I was able, and then Anne from Wheatland got a hold of Donovan, and he called me, and he just told me his experience. And I just said, well, thank you for making my kids' experience amazing, and being my hero, because really he is. And he said that experience motivated him to finish nursing school, and he's now an ER nurse. And so just to hear how these experiences have such a tragic experience, but how it's made other people's lives better, and to hear their side of the story is almost like a movie reel or something, to see how all of these people's parts touched our lives. It was amazing.
Well, I shared with Stacy and the children earlier that it's last week. Sorry, it was not last week. It was the week of the 26th. That weekend, just felt like we had angels with us all week, and there was miracles, little miracles, but they were very present for us in our lives of meeting the people and having situations coordinated and being able to have things happen the way that they did. And I personally want to thank the Crapos, Elizabeth and Austin Crapo, that the month of August was donated to the first responders, or dedicated to the first responders, and saying thanks because of their interest in serving in honor of Mara, their daughter. And we saw some of Mara's miracles continue to happen in our life. So yes, we lost our daughter, but we felt like there was still heavenly coordination from
total heavenly coordination.
Things beyond our control.
Just things that you're like, wow, like that is not coincidence. That is God touching our life and putting people where they need to be at the right time.
So I was going to share one of the miracles. The last thing I would say is one of the miracles that happened, and I'll do a little, because it's kind of this month's September's service project will be is in line with this. When we were in Wheatland and we finished visiting with Anne, we were heading back to our car, and I ran into a lady, a nurse. I'm guessing she was a nurse. She was in scrubs, and her name is Nora. And we were asking Nora, hey, we're going to be coming back tomorrow. We're going to try and go out to dinner with Troy. Where should we go out to eat? And she said, well, if you were eating today, my mom's place. And her mom, Olivia, has a little Mexican restaurant. I think it's Los Domingos, or Los Domingos, there in Wheatland. And I love Mexican food.
I do too.
And
it's my
so
favorite.
we were kind of in a hurry, but we were suckers because I was hungry, and I was thinking, well, I'm going to go run. I might as well get some good fuel. So we went over and we ate, and we got to meet Olivia and ate. They have, if you're ever in Wheatland,
Amazing food.
Great food, great food. And we went to pay for our bill and leave, and they said, oh, there's no charge. Nora called over and said that she was going to pay for it. And we had shared with Nora a little bit why we were there, so I just, when that happened, all I can describe is that heaven was like, for a brief moment, just opened, and we didn't need any further witnesses to let us know that God was aware of what we're trying to do and what we are, where our hearts are at. And it was, and Stacy, as we were leaving and heading up to Casper, Stacy's like, oh my gosh, Josh, she did for us exactly what you said you're going to do for September Service Project. So I have made it a habit. I don't do it all the time, but I try and do it regularly since Lilly passed away. That if I'm in a gas station, I try and get gas. If I'm at a restaurant, I try and get a treat or buy somebody's dinner. Or if I'm getting ice cream, I try and get the person behind or somewhere's ice cream. And I think we shared a couple weeks ago about Stacy getting ice cream for a couple that, anyways, I don't know. The point of this is not, but doing that has changed my life. I've seen my life changed, and every time I do it, I see somebody else's life changed for good. How long that lasts, I don't know, and I don't know, and I don't need to know now, but I will know at some point in the future. And I'm very excited to see how all of those drops or all of those ripples that begin. I would love to see at some point in the future where those go, and I know I will. So we're inviting everybody to, in the month of September, to just find one opportunity to do something like that for somebody, whether, and it doesn't certainly need to be much. And I'll share a few experiences on my little video when I post it to introduce it. But that miracle for us was awesome, from Nora and then her mother Olivia. What a sweet, and it was kind of special maybe a little bit to us because that was the last meal that Lilly ate together as a family, was a Mexican meal, and we love Mexican food, and it was just
Perfect.
a perfectly little heavenly orchestrated miracle that I'm attributing to one of Mara's miracles, because her mom and dad, because their desire to reach out and serve as a result of the loss of their daughter, just like Josh and Shannon have done with the Blankets for Babes, led Stacy and I into a situation that we would not have probably done in the same way as they've inspired us to do.
It was wonderful. And I just want to say that if I know some people are still getting their baskets out from August, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be a basket. It can be a handwritten thank you note. It can be cards you make with your kids, anything, and just something to tell them thank you. So
I lied, I've got to say one thing.
Okay.
So Shannon wanted me to say, with all of these service projects that we're doing, they can be simple. Shannon and I would just say Shannon and Elizabeth have probably set a precedent that I don't know that I'll ever achieve in any of my full service things, but that's okay. I serve in the way that means something to me.
Yeah.
I know that Shannon did it in the way that she needed to do it, and Elizabeth did it in the way that she needed to do it. That's what we want to do. There certainly is no expectation. There's no precedent. There's no exact recipe. You do what you feel in your heart honors that person that you've loved, and let that be your guiding principle. There's no measurements. There's no comparisons. There's no nothing. None of that. It's just simply
saying thank you to the first responders.
Yeah. And all of the service is a way to, when you serve, I promise you that you will feel a little closer to heaven, and that those that you love in that moment, I know will be a little closer to you.
Yep, I know that to be true, and I just, I know it may seem hard to do such a thing as to go and talk to these people, and I think through years, for me, I was totally ready, and I don't know if I would have been ready before, who knows. But if it's too fresh for you, then wait, but don't forget. Make it a point in your journal or something to say thank yous when you're ready. And
you can thank first responders every month of every year if that's
true.
something that you want to make a habit of your life. I think it's a great idea to thank much more often.
Yeah. So I'm just grateful for all the first responders, especially our angels on that most tragic day in our lives. And they truly made a difference in my children's lives and in my life, and I just thank them.
Yeah, we often forget the work that those people do, and certainly our hearts go out to all those that dedicate their lives to doing that with integrity and with love and with kindness and compassion. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.